A massive ice demon stood before the girl. She was brand new, just starting out, yet she was forced to face this terrifying monster. But as a guardian carrying the honor of the Campbell Knight family, Cecily could not back down. She gripped her sword tightly and moved straight forward. The monster's eyes held no emotion whatsoever. It unleashed a rapid barrage of small ice spikes directly at her. Cecily had no way to dodge and no way to fight back. She fell to the ground, eyes wide open, helplessly watching as the monster prepared its lethal strike. In that tiny moment just before death, a brilliant light came slicing through the air. It was the flash of an incredibly sharp blade that cut the monster's attack apart in a single instant. Standing before her was a young boy who was roughly her own age. His name was Luke, and this was the third time he had saved Cecily's life. Our story begins in the city of Houseman. It was a free trading city that operated under neither the pressure of the Empire nor the monarchy. Whenever Empire thugs came into the city threatening and harassing merchants, Cecily would immediately draw her sword and warn them, either disappear right now or you will lose something valuable. The visiting merchants would initially try to resist a little, but the moment they saw the Night Guard badge, they would grind their teeth and say they would remember her face, then run away so fast they left their own shoes behind. Because of Cecily's bravery, people were able to trade in peace. The people of the city were very grateful to the young knight. While Cecily was absorbed in the people's praise, a tremendous explosion rang out nearby. Along with it came the screams of terrified people. She turned to look and saw a man swinging a large sword like a madman. Everything his strikes landed on shattered into pieces. From his clothes, Cecily understood he was a warrior. She shouted loudly for him to stop and warned that if he did not, she would attack. But no matter how many warnings she gave, the man showed no reaction. So Cecily attacked herself. The man turned and struck back, and with just a single ordinary slash, he sent Cecily flying far away. Seeing his terrifying strength, Cecily was completely stunned. Real combat was truly a completely different thing. She steadied herself and stood up again, deciding to stop the knight in front of her. But this time things got even worse. The opponent swung his sword with almost casual carelessness, and Cecily's sword snapped into two pieces like glass. It was not an ordinary sword. It had been passed down through 3 generations of her family. It was the pride and symbol of the Campbell family. The moment her sword broke, Cecily's courage broke along with it. She stood there frozen on the spot. Even when the opponent raised his sword again to finish her off, she did not move at all. Just as that sword was about to cut Cecily in two, another blade came between them. It did not just stop the large sword, it pierced straight through it and cut it into 2 pieces. The warrior was absolutely dumbfounded about what had just happened. In that same instant, his senses came back to him as well. He stopped right there. Then other knights arrived and grabbed him and arrested him. The young man looked towards Cecily with disappointment. Was that really all she had, and she dared to call herself a knight? Saying that much, Luke walked away. Lisa ran after him and tried to catch him while panting heavily. Perhaps the whole commotion had put him in such a bad mood that he no longer felt like doing anything. He went straight home and fell into a deep sleep. On the other side, Cecily took her broken family sword to the most famous blacksmith shop in the city. She asked them to repair her inherited sword, but they could not do it. In the current era, swords were made by melting iron and shaping it through breathing techniques. Making a sword by forging it from a single piece of steel, the old-fashioned way, was something very few people still knew how to do, and rejoining a broken sword back into a single piece was even more difficult than that. Very few craftsmen had such skill. Cecily remembered Luke's incredibly sharp blade. She asked the blacksmith for Luke's address and set out to find him. The good thing was that Luke himself was also a blacksmith. She introduced herself. "I am Cecily Campbell, a 3rd-generation knight of the Campbell family." She had come to have Luke forge a sword for her that would never break. Lisa did not fully understand the real meaning of this request, and was about to explain that nothing in this world lasts forever, when Luke cut her off and turned down the job with all kinds of excuses. He said the katana his father had made it, that he knew nothing about forging. But not even 5 seconds had passed before Lisa carelessly blurted out the truth, and his secret was exposed. Luke had made that sword himself. Cecily understood that Luke did not consider her worthy of a good blade, so she said that ever since the day Houseman City was founded, the Campbell family had been protecting it. That was their family's greatest honor and their firm responsibility. Cecily had only become a knight 1 month earlier. Her father had passed away from a serious illness. As the eldest child, she did not want their family's tradition to end. She told Luke to watch her fight and then make his decision. Just as she finished speaking, warning bells rang out from beyond the city walls. It meant a convoy carrying goods had been attacked. Cecily immediately arrived there and saw that several knights were lying wounded on the ground. Their injuries were far from minor. The attackers were not humans, but rather terrifying wolf-like monsters. Luke looked carefully at their eyes and sensed something strange. It was clear that someone else was controlling them from behind. Cecily did not understand the gap between herself and the enemy. She overestimated her own strength and launched a solo attack just to impress Luke. She struck with her sword, but not even a scratch appeared on the monster's skin. Just as the demon was about to crush her with its claws, Luke arrived. He split the wolf clean in half with one easy strike. The remaining wolves lunged at him too, but he finished them all off with precise strikes. His footwork moved back and forth with such agility that it looked like he was dancing. His body swayed like a wave as it avoided every attack, and the moment any monster left even a slight opening, it was cut down in that very instant. Just as Luke finished off those wolves, a flash of purple light burst from the distance. As that light faded, a wave of cold mist spread across the entire area. Everything it touched was turned to ice. When the mist cleared, the same massive monster we saw at the beginning appeared. Luke knew that Cecily could not face it, so he told Lisa to take Cecily away. He would stay here alone and fight it himself. His voice was firm and clear, but deep in his heart even he was not confident that he could defeat this demon alone. If he slipped even a little, the monster would swallow him tonight and spit him out tomorrow. Luke tried his best to hold off the continuous barrage of ice being hurled at him, but in one moment of carelessness, he got hit and fell down. A storm of sharp ice fragments continued to rain down on him without stopping. Just as those fragments were about to go straight through Luke, Cecily came back. The honor of the Campbell name meant she could not leave someone in trouble behind. Seeing Cecily's determination, Luke said nothing. He just asked Lisa to bring his sword and a piece of steel, and then began an extraordinary magical forging process. On Luke's order, both he and Lisa closed one eye each. Their pupils began to tremble and shift rapidly. A magic circle emerged on the ground. A mysterious energy orb began pulsating at its center. Luke placed the hilt and the piece of steel inside it. Then he completed every complex step of the forging process by calling them out one by one. With each step, the steel transformed. Slowly, its shape began to take form, and finally a sword was born. When it was complete, Luke pulled out a glowing deep red plate from it. It looked like it contained an eternally burning fire, a fire that could incinerate anything and would never be extinguished. Now holding this sword in his hand, Luke no longer feared the monster. Cecily had bought him a little time, and in that time he had been able to forge this blade. Cecily's broken family sword had completed its final task and shattered into pieces. The fact that it had held together for so long was no less than a miracle. Luke gripped the sword firmly and moved forward. As he raised his hand, the flames on the katana grew even more intense. The monster struck with its claws, but Luke's single straight slash completely cut through its attack. Cecily was absolutely stunned watching all this. This was the very katana she had always dreamed of. Lisa explained from the side that forging a katana of this level was never an easy task. Even setting aside the countless difficult processes involved, just the act of properly heating and forging the steel alone was enough to defeat countless blacksmiths. The monster seemed to sense that its enemy had become far more powerful than before, so it transformed its form again. Its body grew even larger. Its torso stopped being round and took on a clear front and back shape. Wings burst from its back, and it launched a blizzard-like assault directly at Luke. Luke gripped his sword tighter and began moving rapidly to dodge. His speed was remarkable, but the ice strikes were so dense that avoiding them completely was impossible. Several pieces grazed his skin as they passed by, even though they did not hit directly. Cecily could not understand why Luke was not blocking them with his sword. The weakness of a katana is its thin and delicate build, as she had seen earlier. The reason Luke had fallen previously was precisely because the katana had broken, so he could not risk blocking. He had to dodge at all costs. This was the fighting style that someone wielding a katana was forced to learn out of necessity. Looking from above, it seemed like Luke was being pushed back, but the truth was exactly the opposite. He knew precisely the reach of his attacks and also exactly when to catch the right moment. The moment an opportunity presented itself, he shot forward like lightning and carved a deep slash across the demon's abdomen. He then used the monster's leg as a springboard, leaped into the air, and with a devastating slash cut it completely in half from the middle. Watching all of this, a whole new world opened up before Cecily's eyes. Luke was not just powerful, he had tremendous experience as well, and the quality of his sword was absolutely jaw-dropping. The only sad thing was that it was a single-use weapon. The moment the battle ended, it dissolved into the air and drifted away as dust. Not just the katana, Cecily's armor had also ended up in the same condition. She had used it to save Luke, so now it was breaking apart and falling to the ground, leaving her chest exposed. At that same moment, the scene shifted to the sky and Luke's pain-filled scream echoed through the air. The next morning, Cecily told Luke about the reward amount. Then she also hesitantly offered a heartfelt apology. But Luke was not the kind of person who forgave so easily. She had hit him hard enough to mess up his face, and now she thought a single sorry would fix everything. Whether those things were encrusted with gold, decorated with diamonds, or had nuclear weapons attached to them, all Luke knew was that just seeing them had cost him a beating bad enough to leave him in this condition. He felt the urge to punch her right back so she could understand what it felt like. Luke was not able to attend the Vebinil conference where everyone was discussing the demon that had started a war 44 years ago. The demon's reappearance yesterday had made everyone feel that the day of its awakening was no longer far away. They would have to race against time. If humans could find the holy sword first, there was still hope. But if Vol awakened before the sword reached human hands, it was time to start digging grave. At the location of yesterday's raid, knights had caught several bandits and interrogated them. They knew nothing about the mysterious man who was behind everything. It all happened because that man had told them the convoy was carrying treasure. Tempted by that greed, the bandits had attacked. On top of that, their leader had also been turned into a monster by that same mysterious man. Just as that bandit finished speaking, a creature emerged from his mouth. The good thing was that a knight showed quick reflexes and shot it down right then and there. Dealing with such things was truly terrifying. No one knew what the next major incident would be. The knight returned and gave a full report to his officers. The convoy was carrying a box full of swords that were clearly not ordinary weapons. It was very likely that mysterious man had been after exactly those. Thankfully, Luke arrived in time. Meanwhile, Luke continued working at his furnace as usual. Cecily stood outside watching him, because the rule there was that women were not allowed inside. Lisa was an exception due to being a special assistant. The complex forging Cecily had just witnessed was barely the first step, and on top of that Luke was currently only making a kitchen knife. This alone showed just how precious a real katana truly was. Knowing all this, Cecily's desire to get a sword made by Luke grew even stronger. She kept persistently after him until Luke was so exhausted and annoyed that he finally agreed just to get some peace. But you have to work to eat, no work means no food, and there would be no bargaining on the forging fee. The katana required a special, extremely pure type of steel. The cost of completing it, polishing it, and the 77 other related expenses would also have to be covered by Cecily. Just hearing this nearly made her head spin. She worked for the government, she was not a bandit. How on earth could she afford all of that? She wondered if it could be paid in installments or on credit. Luke refused in a cold tone. Absolutely not. Cecily thought to herself that this man was deliberately giving her a hard time. She felt like beating him up properly. The next day, Cecily went to work in an extremely bad mood. Everyone assumed she had fought with her boyfriend. What they did not know was that Cecily did not even have a dog to her name, let alone a boyfriend. Then her officer called her over and assigned her an urgent security mission. Because of her connection with Luke, she was considered the most suitable person for this job. When Cecily arrived in the room, an extremely beautiful girl was already there. A certificate of good character was attached to her chest. Her name was Arya, and the responsibility of protecting her had been given to Cecily. Cecily was surprised to learn that this time she was not protecting goods, but a person. Even calling her a person was not entirely accurate, because Arya was actually a demon's sword. The sword case everyone had seen earlier was to protect Arya from thieves, but she had transformed into human form and come to the city herself. It was for this reason that she had escaped from the mysterious man who had made a deal with a demon. As soon as the mission briefing ended, Cecily ran straight toward Luke's house. The moment they saw each other, a fierce argument broke out between them. Watching them fight like this, Arya found it all somewhat adorable. She thought maybe the two of them were a couple. Cecily could tolerate a lot of things, but being mistaken for Luke's girlfriend was something she absolutely refused to accept. When she saw that Luke was staying silent, she drew her sword and lunged at him. Luke dodged nimbly, and the two scuffled for a bit before finally settling down. This made Arya even more convinced that the two were quite close. When Cecily said that Arya was a demon's sword, Luke was genuinely left stunned. No matter how much he looked at this beautiful girl, he could not connect her to any weapon at all. Arya went to an open area, began reciting a spell, and finally commanded that God be slain. The moment her words stopped, the air around them surged like a violent storm. Some of the fierce gusts were shining as if they had a razor-sharp edge, and anything they touched was cut. The wind covered the entire area. Her entire body shone with a dazzling light. When the light faded, the girl was gone. In her place, a sword stood driven straight into the ground. This was the demon's sword. In addition to shapeshifting, Arya also had the power to control wind. Normally, if a person wanted to use such a wind blade, they would need to make a contract with the wind and then channel energy through a Tamagain stone. Luke observed carefully and found that no energy fluctuation was coming from any stone. This confirmed that this power was innate to Arya. She really was the wind demon's sword. After demonstrating Arya's strength, Cecily took Luke aside because she had actually come for Lisa. Meanwhile, at the night headquarters, everyone had become alert due to the demonic creatures that had recently appeared. The value of a single demon's sword alone was enough to shake an entire country. The commander ordered everyone not to make even the slightest mistake in their work. The knights present said in fearless voices that they were ready to give their lives for this mission. The commander was pleased by their enthusiasm, but also reminded them of one important thing. A human must understand fear. The fear of death is what keeps one on the right path. That very fear forces one to keep fighting and return alive until the very last moment. While the knights were rallying their courage, Lisa's group was clearing every dish like a magnificent Japanese food processor. Cecily had brought Lisa along so she could show her the best eating spots in the city. She told everyone to eat freely, order whatever they liked, and feel free to buy the whole restaurant if they wanted, because the government was covering all expenses for this mission. The city's prominent people had seen all this. They probably would have sent Cecily back to the village to plough fields and herd buffaloes. Meanwhile, Lisa was also eating away with great enjoyment. Goodness knows how Luke had raised someone else's daughter and brought her this far. In the middle of this feast, Lisa accidentally let slip that next week at the market, Luke would be going to search for a demon's sword. It was not clear why such a great master blacksmith was so eager to find one. After eating, the three of them walked together along the streets. Arya liked the atmosphere of this place very much. There was no smell of death here, no stench of rot. This seemed perfectly normal to Cecily, but then she heard Arya's experiences. Arya had passed through many cities where there were more corpses than living people, and the truth was that Arya herself had been a reason for many of those countless deaths. Her age was approximately 40 or 50 years. She did not know who had forged or created her. Her earliest memory was of waking up on the battlefield of the Demon Realm War that had taken place 44 years ago. Someone had picked her up and cut down an enemy in one terrible strike. After that, a wind blade launched from a distance had sliced through the enemy's entire army. Humans who saw Arya's extraordinary power began killing each other to obtain her. In her memories, they were all soulless demons without mercy, and truthfully they were the right kind of companions for a demon's sword born only for killing. Arya was recounting all this without any pride. Rather, her tone carried a slight sadness, because she knew she had been born for war and slaughter. In her entire existence, she had been given very few moments of peace like this. She truly wanted to be able to stay here forever. But just as everyone was enjoying this beautiful moment, a sudden storm broke out inside the jail. Prisoners suddenly lost their senses and their strength exploded outward. They ripped open the doors of their cells with their bare hands and broke out. The night guard immediately assessed the situation and dispatched a fighting unit. Cecily also wanted to go fight, but the captain stopped her. Her mission was the most important of all. She had to protect the demon's sword no matter what. So Cecily stayed back while the captain took the remaining knights and headed into battle. Just from seeing the prisoners' crazed condition, the captain understood they had fallen under the control of brain-eating parasites. These were the same monsters that had assembled a massive army for the Demon King 44 years ago. Whoever they made a host could not be saved. Such people could only be killed. Therefore the knights had no choice other than to cut them down without mercy. Cecily was restless at home. She could not sit still for even a moment. Seeing this, Arya came to her with a sword. Cecily's mission was to protect this very city, and Arya also wanted to stay here forever. Arya's courage-giving words melted Cecily's heart. She took the sword and went out to fight. Soon her eyes landed on the crazed knight, and behind him stood the same mysterious man in black clothes. Cecily was just about to approach when both of them disappeared. At that same moment, a crazed citizen came and stood behind her. Arya immediately explained the situation. The man standing before them was no longer human. There was only one way to give him mercy, to kill him compassionately, but Cecily simply could not do it. She had never taken anyone's life before, and even now she did not want to. Even after knocking him down in a single slash, Cecily was filled with guilt. Lisa wanted to step forward to help, but Luke held her back. The night squad arrived there and shouted at Cecily to finish off the creature, but Cecily remained frozen in place. In the end, another knight had to come forward and complete the job himself. That knight was very disappointed seeing Cecily's attitude as a fighter. He felt she should just quit being a knight entirely, but Arya saw it from a different angle. For her, Cecily was a true knight, one who did not treat human lives as worthless and did not kill without thinking. It was this very compassion that made Arya accept Cecily and want her to become her master. If that day came, Arya would no longer be a sword that took people's lives. She would become a sword that protected people. But Cecily never considered herself worthy of being Arya's master. She saw herself as just a raw sword fighter whose skill was so minimal it was practically non-existent. How could she possibly wield a powerful demon sword like Arya? For now, all she wanted was to train with everything she had and prove to Luke that she deserved the sword he would make. Hearing this, Arya laughed. She jokingly said that if Cecily showed Luke that certificate of good character, getting 10 katanas forged would be no problem. Cecily let out a long sigh and said Luke had already seen that certificate and still had not handed over even a sword handle yet. After some time, even though Cecily could not become Arya's master, the two decided to become friends. No matter what lay ahead, Cecily resolved to protect Arya and never let her fall into anyone's hands again, so she would never become a killing machine. but the promise Cecily had just made was quickly put in danger. The next day, the Free City was about to hold its trade festival so that people would come and the city's prosperity would grow. The city's ruler wanted the demon's sword to be displayed before everyone. The man in black would certainly come and cause an uproar to seize the sword. The captain also agreed with this assessment, but for him, it was also an opportunity to catch that mastermind who had been running everything from behind the scenes. During this time, Cecily arrived and overheard their conversation. The captain gave her a special responsibility. The next day on the stage, she would be the one holding Arya while performing before the people. Even knowing this was very dangerous and that Arya could be taken, Cecily went to consult Luke. She asked what he would do if he was forced to put someone he wanted to protect into danger. Luke said he would never put the person he was protecting in such danger himself, but if necessity forced it, he would stake his own life to protect them. Hearing Luke's answer, Cecily understood what she needed to do. She went back and told Arya the plan for the next day. Arya felt no fear and no worry. She had complete faith that Cecily would protect her well. The next morning, Luke wandered through the market looking for a demon's sword but found nothing. Arya was a fine blade, but she did not meet his needs. At the auction location, Cecily was visibly nervous, so everyone started teasing her. They said if she performed well, someone might want to take her home as a bride. Maybe Luke would even show up. At this, Cecily snapped back, asking how she could marry a man who was more tight-fisted than super glue. Just then, by coincidence, Luke happened to be passing by and heard this. He said nothing and quietly moved on. When performance time came, Cecily and Arya got on the stage. Once Arya transformed, Cecily grabbed the sword and released a wind blade that moved forward and shattered the target into pieces. The crowd below erupted in joyful cheers. Cecily had just let out a sigh of relief after the successful performance when she spotted the crazed knight. A purple light glowed right above his heart. Fire erupted beneath his feet, and he transformed into a terrifying fire tornado that shot straight up and pierced the sky. When the fire tornado cleared, a demon stood before everyone. The night squad had come fully prepared. Energy orbs placed all around fired bolts of electricity that locked the demon in place, and soldiers began advancing to surround it. They were fully confident in their preparation, but the demon struggled for a few moments before releasing flames from its body that demolished the pillars. The binding electricity became useless. Blue flames erupted from the demon's hands, and it hurled fire forward, creating a devastating explosion. Those caught in the blast were reduced to ash, not a name or trace left behind. Cecily was fortunate enough to only get blown backward and fall, but in this impact, Arya slipped from her hand. The demon had been waiting for exactly this. It moved forward, picked up the sword, and swung it. With just that single slash, shockwaves of explosions spread in all directions. Fire and wind combined, which caused Arya's destructive power to increase to a terrifying degree. After the explosion, Cecily sat there in despair. Luke came running and told her that if she did not want to die, she should get out of here. But Cecily refused to abandon Arya. Doing so meant breaking her promise. She begged Luke to fight alongside her. Luke immediately refused. "Do not dump your helplessness on me." Even after being refused so coldly, Cecily did not give up. She was prepared to stake everything she had in exchange for his help. If Luke wanted money, she would work until her dying breath. If he wanted to use her body to satisfy his desires, she was willing to agree to that too. When Lisa heard this, she became so emotional that tears came to her eyes. Seeing this, Luke could no longer refuse. He would help, but he could only create one opportunity to finish off the demon. Cecily herself would have to be the one to end this game. To defeat the demon, Luke needed to forge another magic sword. The demon's fire was so intense that any armed sword would melt the moment it touched it. Even a magic sword could only wound it 3 times. That was why Luke could not do this job alone. According to the plan, Luke completed the blade and moved forward through the demon's rain of fire, cutting through its back. His body shifted with the fluidity of water, and he struck wherever the demon left gaps in its defense. Every strike was working, making the demon shriek in pain. On the 3rd slash, the demon's arm was cut off, and the demon's sword went straight into the ground. Cecily had been waiting for exactly this moment. Without caring that the handle of the sword had turned red hot like fire, she moved forward and grabbed it. Cecily abandoned defense and went on the offensive, releasing a wind blade straight forward. In response, the demon also hurled a fireball. The 2 attacks clashed together with tremendous force. Cecily was not just standing and waiting for the result. She poured even more energy into her strike. The wind in front rose with greater force and tore straight through the demon's attack. Before the demon could recover, Cecily took advantage of the moment, lunged forward, and drove the sword straight through its heart. Purple light burst from the demon's chest, and Arya's wind amplified it further. That light spread across the entire city like an announcement that everything was now finished. After this, the night squad once again missed their chance to catch the man in black. In this battle, the city had lost many brave warriors who were always ready to fight when called upon. but in exchange, they received the vow of a new companion. After everything that happened, Arya decided to stay, and she stood shoulder to shoulder with Cecily as a true partner. From today, she was not the demon's sword that took human lives. She had become the sword that protected the city. Some time later, the city returned to its normal everyday life. Lisa woke up very early in the morning as usual to fetch water. The neighborhood aunties loved her dearly. Lisa was so diligent and hardworking that everyone secretly hoped a daughter-in-law like Lisa would come to their home someday. After fetching water, Lisa went to collect payment from the homes that had commissioned forging work. Usually instead of money, she would receive grain, food items, and everyday necessities. This was more convenient for daily life, and they did not need to go to the city either. Lisa was short in stature, but having grown up in a blacksmith's home, she had incredible strength. She hoisted a heavy loaded box and brought it home as easily as if she were pushing a cart. Back home, Lisa made breakfast and then went to wake up that lazy Luke. After eating, Luke confirmed with Lisa whether any neighbors had placed forging orders. If not, he would start making new tools for everyday use. Lisa cheerfully reminded Luke about making a sword for Cecily. Luke immediately cut her off. No money means no headaches. The two of them stood hard at work at the furnace from morning through midday. Just as they came outside to eat, the two freeloaders Cecily and Arya showed up. Seeing Luke's sour face, Cecily told him to just say whatever was on his mind. Making a face like a dinner plate full of leftovers did not look good on anyone. He should just disappear and give the world a little peace. Whenever those two met, they argued like they could not digest their food without a quarrel. After a little while, Luke and Cecily's argument finally ended. Apart from eating free food, Cecily also wanted to ask about demon packs. 2 incidents of demon attacks had already occurred. If she did not understand these creatures, protecting the city would become nearly impossible. Demon packs were generally formed using Tamagain stone along with human blood and flesh. Once a contract was completed, neither the human's soul nor their body belonged to them anymore. Cecily wanted to know what exactly was inside a human body that demons craved so desperately. It was the death song, written inside every human's heart. This was the call that summoned demons into this world. There were many ways to read the death song, but they were all extremely cruel and horrific. For example, to make a contract with wind, one had to split open a person's chest and read the song, or someone would be forced to read their own song through a mirror. Due to these savage and merciless methods, many regions had placed complete bans on making contracts with demons. Hearing all this made the atmosphere heavy. Arya immediately sensed the tension and lightened the mood by starting an argument over the food. After eating, Lisa got back to work. Cecily offered to help from a distance, but Lisa refused. Whenever she was able to do something for Luke, she felt genuine happiness. That girl did not ask for much. As long as she had food to eat and clothes to wear, she was content. The best proof of this was her closet, which contained a grand total of only 3 pieces of clothing. Learning this, the next day Cecily took Lisa and Luke out to explore the city. She waited until Lisa got absorbed in the sightseeing and then pulled Luke aside and started talking about raising a child. He should take Lisa shopping or out to eat at least once a week. Lisa had a house, a roof, and work, yet she still looked so disheveled and plain that seeing her was heartbreaking. Was he even aware that the girl was still at a growing age? Hearing Cecily's scolding for the first time, Luke went quiet and could not figure out what to say in response. It was difficult to fully blame him either. Lisa had been adopted in childhood, and because there was no blood relationship, the two were awkward about communicating with each other. Luke had never been able to understand what Lisa needed or what she liked. Understanding all this, when Lisa wanted to buy new clothes, Cecily pushed her into a shop, had her name taken down, and then quietly slipped outside so Lisa could choose her own clothes and come out and walk with Luke. Cecily wanted to move their relationship along a little so they could understand each other better. She could not let Luke remain so careless and oblivious, but soon she began to feel disappointed and angry. Lisa had just bought new clothes and Luke had not complimented her. He had not even looked at her. On the way, Lisa tried to start conversation multiple times, pointing out this and that excitedly, but Luke paid not the slightest attention to her words and kept moving straight ahead. The Cecily hiding in the alley could not take it anymore. She wanted to storm out in anger and slap Luke hard across the face and demand an explanation for this attitude. And she had praised Luke so much in front of Lisa, said that Luke actually cared very much about her but just did not know how to show it. Thinking back on it, Cecily wished she could take those words back. Arya tried to stop her, which made people walking by stare in confusion, wondering if this red-haired girl had some kind of biting disease. Even on the walk back home, Lisa kept trying to make conversation. She talked about everything under the sun, but Luke replied with the same indifference. Most of his responses did not go beyond 2 words. Finally, Lisa gathered up her courage and asked whether her new clothes looked nice. When Luke said nothing, Lisa could not bear it anymore and began to cry. But then suddenly Luke went to her side and placed something on Lisa's head. Lisa took it off and saw it was a small hat. It was not very useful for blocking sun or rain, but it matched her new clothes perfectly. Luke did care about the girl, but in his stubbornness, he kept insisting he only bought it because he had been waiting a long time and just picked it up on a whim, that it had no special meaning. Lisa, who until a moment ago had been about to break down and sob from despair, now had tears streaming down her face. But these were not tears of sadness, these were tears of joy. A rough, cold man like Luke was not quite the stone-hearted person people thought him to be inside. He just had no idea how to raise a young girl. That was why he had never had a dog or a girlfriend to this day. Some time later, trouble knocked on Houseman City's door once again. A mysterious group was tailing Cecily and Arya. Their goal was nothing other than to seize the demon's sword Arya. 3 attackers had surrounded Cecily with no escape route remaining. Understanding the seriousness of the situation, Cecily knew that 1 against 3 meant she was either going to get buried or burned. So she challenged them, if they had the courage, fight her one by one. She had just said it on a whim without expecting them to actually fight fairly, but surprisingly enough, 2 of them genuinely stepped back. The one who remained pulled down the cloth hiding her face. She was a girl holding a ridiculously oversized massive sword. She ran aggressively towards Cecily. In every fight, Cecily always chose to defend and block rather than push forward and attack and gain the upper hand, because she believed that no matter the circumstances, her enemy was also a human who did not deserve to be sentenced to death. This very mindset put her in trouble because Doris was continuously dominating her. Doris swung her sword downward and put a gash across Cecily's face. On top of that, Doris swung the sword upward and knocked Cecily's sword out of her hands. Arya saw this and came running, telling Cecily to use her, before she ended up 6 feet underground. Cecily refused at first, but the enemy was overpowering her too much, so she grabbed Arya and attacked a nearby tree to show her strength. If they turned back now, there would be no trouble, but if they kept pressing forward, they would find out whose strike was more painful. Cecily thought the advantage had shifted to her side, but Doris was no ordinary warrior either. She raised her massive sword and began channeling energy into it. When the blade came down, a powerful jolt of earth energy shot straight towards Cecily. Cecily created a wind wall, a wind barrier, to stop the attack. It took a few moments for Doris' energy to be fully neutralized. The 2 clashed forcefully once more and then separated again. Cecily used the distance to her advantage and kept Doris on edge. Doris gathered energy again and drove her sword into the ground. Her sword was a soil earth demon sword. She spun the ground beneath Cecily's feet and created a pit that swallowed her. Sensing the danger, Arya independently created a small whirlwind that pushed Cecily back up. The girl in front was still in shock, and Cecily used those 5 seconds to her advantage. Cecily released a gust of wind that sent Doris flying and falling far away. Seeing her companion fall, another girl stepped forward. Cecily was just about to warn her whether she had not seen the fight when suddenly a blade came flying toward her rapidly. It grazed her arm guard as it passed. This was the Hope Demon sword. It could extend and retract at will, which completely eliminated Cecily's distance advantage. Margit showed her threat and then attacked with full force. To stop the strike, Cecily created another wind shield. It looked like she was just defending, but when she pushed the sword back, the remaining force from the collision sent a shock through Margit's entire body, making her stagger and fall. Seeing this, the final girl stepped forward. Without saying a word, Cecily launched her attack. The girl simply raised her sword and Cecily's wind vanished as if it had been completely swallowed. Her name was Penelope, and she used the demon sword that killed other demon swords. After introducing herself, Penelope moved forward like a never-ending storm of strikes. Cecily held her ground firmly and calmly kept defending. Sensing that one person could not take Cecily down, all 3 rushed together and began attacking in coordinated sequence one by one. Once trapped in this encirclement, Cecily had no opportunity to fight back. They slammed her to the ground repeatedly and played with her like she was a worn-out ragdoll. Trouble was not only over Cecily's head, it had also arrived at Luke's furnace. A small girl named Sherlord came and announced that she was a princess and wanted to take Luke back to work at the royal court. She said it as if she were doing him a favor, did not even think to ask whether he wanted to go or not. Luke immediately told that child to get lost. Which insane asylum had she escaped from? Sherlord refused to leave. Instead, she told Luke that she would take him and the demon sword both along with her no matter what. Hearing this, Luke understood that Cecily was in danger. He ran outside to save her, but Sherlord was not going to let him go easily. She attacked with her black flame demon sword to stop Luke. The girl thought she had cornered him, but she could not believe her eyes when Luke cut every single fireball cleanly in half with great ease. Sherlord refused to believe what she was seeing and kept attacking repeatedly, but each time the result was the same. Luke stepped toward her and Sherlord stumbled backward in fear, fell down, and accidentally drove her own sword into the ground. Meanwhile, even after being badly beaten, Cecily refused to hand over Arya. Her stubbornness annoyed Doris and the other 2 so much that they decided to kill her. At precisely that moment, Luke and the others arrived. Luke had just forged a magic sword and swung it toward Doris and her companions. A terrifying gust of wind pushed them back and slammed them hard against the wall. Those three who had seemed so fierce just a little while earlier were now lying on the ground like a pile of trash. Not long after, city officials received word and called everyone in to resolve the matter. Sherlord once again flaunted her princess status so the city ruler would understand her intentions. But he flatly refused. Neither Luke nor Arya could leave from here. Sherlord invoked her royal standing and demanded special consideration, offering to buy Arya at any price she named. Cecily erupted in fury. Arya was not merchandise for sale. She was a living, breathing person, and these people were talking about buying and selling her. On top of that, this group had attacked with the intent to steal, so what kind of negotiation was this? Someone should hand them a calendar so they could figure out what century they were living in. The knight captain took a deep breath hearing all this. Politics was an extremely tangled web. Things were never as straightforward as we wished them to be. Meanwhile, the city ruler directly expressed his concern. Was Sherlord truly from royalty? Because of all the empire representatives he had dealt with, none had ever worked in such a deceptive manner. Sherlord showed a sword to prove her identity. She was a princess who had returned after being exiled. Years earlier, when her mother and the emperor were in love, the empire felt jealous and forced her mother to flee. Before she left, the emperor had given her mother this sword as a token of recognition. Based on this sword alone, Sherlord had the courage to call herself the empire's princess. All the city ruler needed to do was contact the empire and verify the truth. Until then, Sherlord wanted to stay at Cecily's house. Cecily immediately refused without even thinking. But here the whole issue was about money. Those who were slaves to capitalism knew well that major problems could not be solved with just money. They required a lot of money, or rather an obscene amount of it. So out of necessity, Cecily had to say yes. She took Sherlord and her 3 bodyguards out to eat. Those 4 girls were eating as if they had arrived with the hunger of an entire navy. They ordered a table full of food and cleaned every last bite. They ate so much that the cash Cecily had was nowhere near enough to cover the bill. In the end, all of this debt fell on the Campbell family's head. Cecily must have committed some grave sin in a past life to deserve having to deal with this princess. After stuffing themselves to the brim, the whole group headed towards Cecily's house. Sherlord was quite clever. Because Cecily was a knight, she came from a high-ranking family. Her house had to be better than any inn, and that was exactly why Sherlord had insisted on staying with her. The trouble was that Cecily's house was not grand, large, or luxurious like other wealthy people's homes. Sure, it was better than ordinary folks' houses, but for a family that had been wealthy for 3 generations, this house felt very plain indeed. Still, having a roof over your head was better than not having one. And having a base was better than getting pushed around on the streets. Just as all 4 were about to step inside the house, the family housekeeper Theo came out. Her presence was so commanding that the entire group froze the moment they saw her. Sherlord put on her princess attitude and asked whether Theo knew who she was talking to, but it had no effect whatsoever. In this house, the housekeeper was the boss. The servants here only listened to the Campbell family. No random outsider could come in and give orders. And had they not heard that saying, no work means no food, and in this house, not working meant getting a punch straight to the face. The moment Theo finished speaking, she dragged all 4 inside and put them in servants' clothes. Doris and the others had no objection to wearing them, but Sherlord was an entirely different matter. Everyone breathing in this house was equal. If she did not comply, Theo would plant a lightning-fast punch right on her face. Doris and her group could not take it anymore and charged at Theo to settle things by force. But in the blink of an eye, Theo delivered a strike to each of their heads and they all collapsed to the ground in a heap. Sherlord saw this sight and did not even dare to let out a peep. But Theo also would not accept Cecily sitting around doing nothing and wiggling her fingers. Theo flashed a smile in which not a shred of humanity was visible, and seeing it sent a chill down the spine. Cecily understood something very bad was about to happen and tried to run, but it was too late. Theo grabbed her by the collar and dragged her inside. What followed was a coercion from which there was no escape. In the end, Cecily too was forced to play the role of a maid. While heading out for some shopping errands, Cecily ran into Luke. Being seen in this state in front of this master of sarcasm, the king of sarcasm was making her deeply embarrassed. But Luke did not say a single taunt. He looked at Cecily in those clothes and said she actually looked quite good. Just one compliment and Cecily became so flustered she could not handle herself. She punched Luke hard right in the face and ran away. Luke stood there stunned. What on earth was wrong with this crazy girl? She just punches people whenever she feels like it. Cecily came back home and started helping everyone clean out the storage room. Sherlord's group of 4 may have seemed arrogant and domineering, but they were excellent workers. Whatever task they were given, they completed it. Cecily, on the other hand, was a living example of clumsiness. Everything she touched fell over. Sherlord's group spent their time just cleaning up behind her mess and got exhausted from it alone. Only by late afternoon were all of Theo's assigned tasks completed. As a reward, they got to take a hot bath, and in this free time, the girls also got a chance to chat among themselves. Cecily was curious about why Sherlord was traveling so far at such a young age doing such dangerous work. Sherlord did not want to show off her status. When her mother was alive, she had never mentioned Sherlord's father or the royal family, yet her eyes always wandered in that direction. Even on her deathbed, she had not said a word about her final wish, but Sherlord knew deep inside that her mother had wanted to return to the royal family and reclaim her identity from the emperor. That was why Sherlord had to do everything possible to reclaim her identity from the empire. After bathing, everyone was given a wonderful feast. Thea's home cooking deserved a perfect 10 out of 10 without a single complaint. Every person was chewing food like an industrial machine built in Japan. While Theo ran the entire house with strict discipline, Cecily's mother Lassie was a very soft-hearted person. The moment Sherlord saw her, she was reminded of her kind mother. While Lassie was doing embroidery, Sherlord tried to peek from outside and was accidentally caught. Lassie was neither annoyed nor upset. She invited the girl inside and taught her how to do embroidery like a girl from a respectable household. Cecily noticed this scene and smiled. It seemed like Sherlord was not such a bad person after all. A few days later, as the four of them returned from buying vegetables, each of them felt that life here was truly very good. Doris was laughing and talking happily when she felt she had said too much. Sherlord could not stay here forever. She had to return to the royal family and fulfill her mother's wish. Margaret worried that Sherlord would become sad, so she quickly changed the subject and said there was nothing special about it, nothing worth being happy about. But Penelope disagreed. She had seen the princess laugh after such a long time. This proved that this place was truly one that brought happiness. Still, this was not their destination, just a stop along the journey. Wherever the princess wanted to go, they would follow. These words were easy to say, but perhaps when the time actually came to leave, none of them knew whether they would truly be able to go or not. That evening, Doris and her group were sitting inside playing cards and laughing together. They asked why Cecily was being so kind to them when they had come here to steal Arya. Cecily answered frankly, she did not think anyone present was a bad person. Treating someone kindly was simply a matter of the heart. She needed nothing in return. Sherlord heard everything from outside and walked toward Lassie's room. Lassie's shadow looked just like her mother when she was alive. Lassie saw the girl standing outside and invited her in. Sherlord spoke her heart. She knew that the moment the Empire's response arrived, she would have to leave from here. But so many times, a voice deep inside her whispered, just stay, remain here forever. If she did that, what would become of her deceased mother's final wish? Lassie looked at Sherlord for a moment. From their perspective, parents wanted nothing other than their children's happiness. Living every day joyfully and doing what Sherlord wanted to do, her mother would have wanted that too. This was always true for any parent. The next morning, Sherlord received the Empire's response. They flatly denied recognizing her as a princess. No member by the name Charlotte E. Furisha existed in the royal family. The ancestral token she was showing to prove her identity was a forgery. The demon's sword had been obtained illegally. The Empire ordered the city ruler to confiscate everything and punish Sherlord according to the law. Hearing this, Sherlord froze in place, as if someone had struck her dead right where she stood. All her efforts and struggles had been reduced to dust. The very husband and father that she and her mother had trusted for so many years had refused to recognize them. Sherlord collapsed and shattered right there. Cecily could not believe what she had just heard. A father had refused to acknowledge his own wife and child. On top of that, he wanted them punished for impersonating royalty. Cecily found this cruelty absolutely intolerable. She told the city lord and the knight captain to do something. They could not let the royal family act as they pleased. The most correct path was to keep Charlotte here permanently, never let her leave and never hand her over to the Empire. Everyone understood that the royals wanted to deny their own blood and silence a witness. But the problem was that the city could not protect Charlotte alone. This was a very delicate and complicated political matter. Protecting her meant giving the Empire a legitimate reason to attack. Yet handing Charlotte over was also something neither the city lord nor the captain could bring themselves to do. How could they be so heartless? Cecily was suspicious of their intentions, so she made her position clear. Whatever happened, she would save Charlotte. This was the vow she and Arya had taken together while fighting. That evening, a wonderful meal was laid out on the table again, but no one felt like eating. Charlotte got up and went outside. Doris and the others followed her. In a place where no one could see, Charlotte wept bitterly. So many hopes and in exchange only rejection. For a small child, all of this was very cruel. The next morning, everyone returned to their daily routines. Charlotte looked down and saw that Doris was still at full energy, that Fayu was helping carry water, and was getting punched on the head for making mistakes. By midday, the city lord called everyone together again. He had found a solution that could save both the city and Charlotte's life. The monarchy and the Empire had been enemies for years. When the Empire ordered punishment for an unofficial princess, no one other than the monarchy would have the courage to shelter her. Obviously, allowing Charlotte to go deliberately would put both the city lord and the captain in trouble, but an apology from the captain's side would resolve this matter. Charlotte knew the monarchy would not accept her unconditionally. There had to be a catch. The monarchy wanted Charlotte to tell everything she knew about the empire. She went pale. This meant betraying the empire, the homeland where she and her mother were born. Charlotte would never agree to this under any circumstances. Even if they killed her, she would not accept being exiled under those terms. Cecily was trapped in a very difficult situation, stuck between the city's peace and Charlotte's life. Whenever she could not figure out what to choose, she would go to Luke to ask. Cecily asked why Charlotte was not accepting such a good plan. People needed a reason to live. Without it, they would wander like living corpses every day. To let someone go, you had to show them what they were living for. Just take Lisa as an example. She could live anywhere as long as Luke and Cecily were there. Hearing this, Cecily remembered moments when everyone was happy together. She immediately ran back to tell them what they were living for. At home, only Theo, Lassie, and Charlotte remained. Doris and the others had disappeared without telling anyone. Cecily understood something was wrong and headed toward the weapons vault. All three of them were trying to break in and take back their demon's swords so they could continue their old plan of capturing Arya and Luke, and then return to royal court to prove Charlotte's identity. Cecily kept talking until her throat went dry. She tried her best to convince them but could not stop them. So she let them take back their demon's sword and told them to battle her. Margaret channeled energy through her Hope demon's sword and struck with full force. Every one of her strikes shook every corner of the house, but Cecily was no longer the same fighter she had been before. Her combat skills had become significantly sharper. She had understood how to accumulate energy and then release it in a precise strike, which knocked Margaret to the ground. Penelope stepped forward. She saw what had happened and attacked in anger. Cecily held her position and delivered close-range strikes, releasing sharp, cutting blows. Initially, Cecily was holding her defense, but gradually cuts began appearing on her body. Then a lightning-fast kick sent her crashing to the ground. Cecily refused to surrender. She got up and ran far away to create distance. Penelope tracked her down in the dark and suddenly unleashed an energy attack from her sword. As always, Penelope simply raised her demon's sword to absorb it, but Cecily had already anticipated this. From a distance, she accumulated energy at the base of her blade for a powerful forward strike. Sword energy could be absorbed, and close-range combat was a losing proposition. But a strike so fast and powerful that it could not be stopped, that was a different matter entirely. Cecily moved toward Penelope like a storm. A tremendous explosion occurred. Penelope flew through the air. Her hand was pierced by the strike. Her entire body was racked with pain and she could not stand. Finally, Doris stepped forward. The two of them collided like a storm. Watching her plan being ruined, Doris went crazy with anger. She could not understand why Cecily was so insistent on stopping them. Cecily explained that proving Charlotte's identity was a pointless and foolish endeavor. The Empire did not recognize Charlotte and would kill her on sight. Doris knew this, but as long as Charlotte wanted it, she and her companions would carry it out even if it cost them their lives. Doris drove her sword into the ground and released a massive flood of energy. Cecily did the same for defense. The collision of their energy was so terrible that the entire area trembled. When the dust cleared, Doris lay defeated on the ground. Charlotte arrived at precisely that moment and saw everything. Cecily told her to go to the monarchy and stop chasing after the royal family. Right now, she already had 3 people who were prepared to die for her. She did not need anyone else. Charlotte knew this was true, but what about her mother's final wish? Should she live like a traitor and forget that wish? Cecily shouted that if she could not accept the truth, she should pick up a sword and fight. Charlotte truly did as Cecily said, but her sword fell far away, and after that Cecily slapped her so hard it felt like divine punishment. From today, Charlotte E. Furisha was dead. The next day the Empire received 4 demon swords and left. Charlotte had understood Cecily's words and accepted leaving. Before returning to normal life, Charlotte mentioned Siegfried, the one who had suddenly appeared and given them the 4 demon swords. He was the one behind all of this. Perhaps Charlotte's situation was not as simple as everyone thought. Some time later, Cecily was given a day off. She planned to spend it training and building muscle, but her mother had other plans entirely. You are a young girl, and on your day off you want to lift weights instead of going out with a boy. Are you truly that hopeless when it comes to romance? The moment Cecily thought about Luke, she got flustered. Her mother noticed that reaction and understood someone was on her mind. She immediately ordered Theo to take her daughter inside, give her something nice to wear, and push her out the door. Cecily was put in a tight dress that showed off her figure perfectly, a solid 10 out of 10, no flaws. Still, Cecily felt incredibly self-conscious. She kept hiding and dodging out of the way whenever someone passed. She remembered Theo's treatment and her mother's threat. If she did not do something today, she could consider herself homeless. Cecily thought about asking Arya for help, but Arya just added fuel to the fire. This time there was nobody to rescue her. Cecily stood in the middle of the road, drowning in nervousness, when she bumped into the owner of a blacksmith shop. Seeing her doing nothing, he asked her to take a customer to Luke's location, someone who needed a small sword repaired. The moment Luke saw Cecily's clothes, he asked what new scheme she was planning now. First a maid's outfit, now a dress. Was she changing her entire lifestyle? Hearing his taunting tone, Cecily genuinely wanted to beat him up. Thankfully, Lisa had eyes and knew how to recognize a good thing. Her compliments helped Cecily stay calm. Without any fuss, Cecily introduced the customer standing behind her. Luke took the sword and examined it carefully. Although only a scratch was visible on the surface, it could not be repaired. The blade was broken from inside. Lisa said they could at least do maintenance. This would last as long as it could. Today was a special day for Luke. He stepped out first and left Lisa to work at home. Cecily was also asked to come along. She misunderstood that it was a date and got so nervous that after only a few steps she stumbled and fell flat on her face. Luke noticed her strange behavior but unlike always did not tease her. Instead he talked about Lisa. After the hat incident, the girl had kept thanking him repeatedly, which made him realize how careless he had been all this time. He was not sure whether being with him was even right for Lisa or not. Cecily thought it was right. Was the girl not happy living with him? Hearing this gave Luke a little relief. He swore he would protect Lisa at any cost. The reason Luke had been so insistent was because of Elisa, another Lisa who had died 3 years ago. She was a demon imprisoned inside a mountain who had taken away Luke's childhood friend. Cecily was very surprised to hear this. She had thought it was just a legend-style demon. No, it was real and Luke had seen it with his own eyes. 3 years ago, Luke and Lisa went to work with their father. As always, the old man locked both of them outside. Lisa used that time to show off some sword moves. The katana she was wielding while demonstrating her progress was the very first sword Luke had ever made, one crafted for his childhood friend. In a moment of boredom, Lisa suggested going into the petroleum cave, a place that was considered dangerous. Luke was about to refuse, but Lisa egged him on, asking if he was scared. So both of them went inside the place from which the tragedy began. A massive eye hidden inside the rock opened and stared at both of them. Lisa immediately sensed the danger and pushed Luke behind her, holding her sword forward. In the end, all of this was futile. She was grabbed by the demon. Luke's father had also been killed that very day searching for them. Every time Luke recalled that day, he tormented himself. Everyone else had fought while he had run away. He kept asking himself why he had not died in their place. Behind a hardened and sad face was a heart filled with wounds. Luke did not know why he had brought Cecily here and told her this story. Perhaps because she and Lisa were truly similar. The two walked a little further together and then parted ways. Coming back home, Lisa was polishing a sword when she said she could feel a deep sorrow inside the blade. The woman standing behind her was slightly surprised and then explained. This was the sword of mercy for knights. When a warrior was so severely wounded they could not be saved, this blade would do its final work and grant them release. This sword had been given by a father to his daughter before going to the battlefield. He had promised that no matter what happened, even if he died, he would find a way back so his daughter could set him free. But fate was cruel. The moment he returned, he saw that a demon had stolen his little girl away. As soon as the story ended, Lisa finished the maintenance. The woman took her sword and left to make her report. She had not come to Luke's house just to get a sword repaired. She had come to find someone connected to her master's enemy. By coincidence, that person turned out to be Lisa. The old knight heard this and drew his demon sword. Luke saw someone coming from a distance with a strange sword. Before he could welcome the arrival, that man fired a bolt of lightning into the sky. An energy orb came crashing down on the house from that very spot. Luke grabbed Lisa and jumped to one side to escape. The attacker struck again. The electrical energy made Luke think about whether he should try to cut through it. While he was still thinking, the old knight launched a direct and very fast attack on Lisa. By the time Luke understood what was happening, it seemed too late. However, at precisely the moment the energy orb was about to hit Lisa, it suddenly changed course and went upward into the sky. The old knight shouted, "Elsa, why? The enemy is right there." He vomited blood. That was the price he had paid in life force exchanged for power from the demon's sword. Understanding that today's objective could not be completed, he retreated and left behind the rubble of Luke's house. The next morning, Cecily heard the news and came running. Was this because of the excellent customer she had brought? Cecily thought Luke was blaming her and was just about to beat him when Arya confirmed she was right. Arya had come to Luke's house looking for Cecily the previous evening and had met Elsa, the same customer Cecily had brought. Elsa was not a human. She was a demon's sword. Though the enemy's target was Lisa, Luke felt he was also a target because he was a blacksmith. There were many things in the world that ordinary people did not know about, such as the existence of Valbenihel and everything connected to it. That demon was imprisoned in Houseman through a holy sword, but the holy sword's lifespan was about to run out. Luke had the responsibility of creating a new holy sword to contain Valbenihel once again. The proof that the demon was close to being free was that spirit bodies, demon pacts, and death songs were constantly increasing. Spirit bodies were the curse Valbenihal had placed on the world at the time of his imprisonment. The first Lord of Housemen was truly a great man. He had discovered a method to convert the curse into energy, turning something dangerous into a very useful source of power for humanity. The City Lords' Council was also gathering to discuss this very issue. Time was running out, yet Luke still could not forge a holy sword. One person present produced a sword and declared it was the holy sword, that it was not only Luke who was capable of making it. Everyone present looked at that blade with great excitement and hope. Only one person, who knew the true reality behind it, smiled slightly and walked away. Luke asked himself too, what was he missing? Some special material, lack of skill, or perhaps lack of hatred toward Valbenihal? He could not find the answer, though others could clearly see it. Luke did not hate the demon that had killed his father and Lisa. He hated himself, his helplessness and the cowardice he had shown 3 years ago. Cecily was angry that Luke knew all of this and was carrying such a burden, yet had never shared any of it with her. Arya had understood this thing, sometimes not knowing is better. Knowing only increases worry without giving the power to change anything. There is a different kind of happiness in ignorance. That evening, Arya wanted to do something fun to lift everyone's mood, so she went shopping in the city. She bumped into Elsa and the two talked. Arya had always wondered why demon swords like her that had human form were different from swords that existed as weapons. Why had she been born? What was the true purpose of their existence? Arya still had everything, but she feared that one day it would all disappear and she would be wandering again. According to Elsa, demon swords were Valbenihal's hatred toward this world. The demon did not hate humans, it hated what had created it. Arya remembered the spell she recited when shapeshifting, slay God. Elsa had understood this for quite some time. She wanted to kill Valbenihal to free herself, but a demon's sword could not do anything on its own. It was entirely dependent on its master. That was why her sole objective now was to kill Lisa. That night Elsa went home and told her master to stop. If he continued on this path, he would be killed. The man in black clothing arrived at that very moment. Under his influence, the old knight took his sword and went after Luke again. Luke did not hesitate for even a moment to draw his blade. It looked as though a fierce battle was about to begin between the two. But the man in black blocked Luke's path. The old knight moved straight forward, which forced Cecily to step between them. The fight between them was extremely intense. The energy from their strikes created shockwaves all around. After some struggle, Cecily went flying backward. The lightning sword was truly very dangerous, effective from a distance, and devastating up close. Cecily had to use every ounce of her strength just to hold her ground. On Luke's side, he was answering every strike of the man in black until that man unleashed the power of his dark demon sword. That dark energy did not just damage things, it began to rot them. A strike landed on Luke, and his flesh started tearing, as if he was about to fall at any moment. Lisa saw this and wanted to run outside, which would give the old knight an opportunity to attack. Fortunately, Cecily reacted in time and broke the incoming lightning bolt. The old knight screamed in fury, "That is the demon, that is Valbenihal. Why are you standing in my way?" In his rage and pain, he launched another lightning attack at Lisa. Cecily did not hesitate for even a moment. She erected a strong wall of wind that stopped every strike. The old knight could not maintain this attack for long. Vomited blood and fell down, but he refused to surrender. With his last remaining strength, the knight pointed his sword toward the sky. When he brought it down, a devastating lightning strike moved toward Cecily. She did not give up either. She accumulated her energy and released a massive storm of wind. The two forces collided violently in midair. At that same moment, Arya and Elsa met once more. This final meeting was not to become friends, it was to end everything forever. The knight's lightning broke apart. Elsa stepped forward and took that strike upon herself. In her final breaths, the old knight lowered the armor over his chest. Elsa took the sword of mercy and drove it straight into his heart. When the old knight died, his demon's sword broke into 2 pieces and Elsa disappeared. No one understood what had just happened. Everyone's eyes and questions turned to the man in black clothing. The answer he gave, it was the demon's sword's job to kill its own master. Sooner or later, Arya would also kill Lisa. That girl carried Valbenihal's blood flowing through her veins. It was Luke himself who had killed the real Lisa 3 years ago to create a demon, a way to escape from Valbenihal. Today's Lisa was that very demon. After revealing this secret, the man in black launched a massive dark energy strike at Luke. While Luke was busy cutting through that attack, the man disappeared. Everyone looked toward Luke, hoping he would deny this. But he confirmed that what the man had said was true. Hearing his words, everyone went numb. But they knew some things were worth asking, and some things were better left alone. Right now, the most important thing was to give that fallen old knight a proper burial. After this incident, a strange distance formed in Cecily's heart regarding Lisa. She stopped inviting Arya to eat like before, which made Lisa very sad. Luke thought this was normal. After all, the two of them had been together before all this happened, so they could just move on with life that way. Lisa asked Luke whether he truly thought so. This question silenced him for quite a long time. He could not find the words. And he silently watched her go off to do her work. Cecily was very troubled by this but could not find a solution. Arya presented her with a challenge. If she and Lisa were both demons, would anything change? Would Cecily stop going near them? She should remember how she first saw Lisa and ask herself whether anything was different now. Cecily took Arya's words to heart and remembered that nothing had changed at all. It was still the same lovely and innocent smile. She decided that after finishing her work, she would go home and apologize to the girl from the heart. Today was the day of the Valbonihal conference. Everyone had gathered to discuss this issue. Cecily spotted the man in black seated in the Empire's carriage. During the fight with Luke, his face had become visible, and this was definitely the same person. Without wasting even a single second, Cecily drew her sword and attacked with the intent of cutting his head off. But his bodyguards moved even faster to stop her. Nearby knights came running, grabbed her, and took her sword. When the knight captain arrived, she quickly explained that this was the man who had been wearing black clothing and was the mastermind behind all of this. The captain was stunned hearing her, but there was no evidence to confirm his identity. Although Charlotte had previously given his name as Siegfried and Luke had also arrived in time to support her, this was still not enough. He was the commander of the Empire's military forces. The city would have to think very carefully before arresting him based on that name alone, especially when everything was so murky. In the end, everyone went to the conference room. Luke showed the holy sword, but it was still incomplete. Then some useless old men who had not accomplished anything themselves started spouting nonsense, or rather, started humiliating Luke. They brought up how he had made Lisa into a demon, then started making vulgar remarks about his nighttime activities. Minds that were not built for thinking, and only dumped all decisions on the lowest soldier, could only produce this kind of thinking. Luke said nothing. Cecily, who was sitting beside him, had blood boiling so hot she genuinely wanted to draw her sword and bite these old dogs. The more he bowed his head, the more pressure they applied, bringing Cecily close to losing her composure. To stop her from losing control, Luke had to send her outside. That humiliating conference continued without pause. Inside the conference, the Empire shamelessly put forward the idea of taking Luke back to their territory under the pretext of forging the Holy Sword. Everyone understood the truth. They simply wanted to exploit him. The monarchy had similar intentions. The city lord of Houseman saw through their schemes and immediately refused, stopping any further discussion on the matter. Cecily gave up and came back home. The first thing she did was apologize to Lisa from the heart. Lisa did not hold her responsible at all. How could anyone stay normal after suddenly learning their friend was a demon? Lisa herself was filled with regret. She was young and looked like the real Lisa, but her personality was completely different. Perhaps whenever Luke had to see someone who was half what she was and half not, it must have been very painful for him. Still, Lisa did not want to leave Luke's side. She wanted to do whatever she could to help him, whether it was cooking, doing laundry, sweeping floors, or tidying the house. She wanted to do all of it. Hearing this, something shifted inside Cecily. She ran to the Valbonihal conference and declared loudly what had truly happened 3 years ago. Luke had not sacrificed Lisa to save himself. It was Lisa herself who had sung the death song and made a contract with a demon to save her childhood friend whom she loved. During the contract process, anyone with even minimal understanding knew that no one could be forced into it. Those present accepted this logic but still maintained a stubborn attitude. Maybe Luke had pressured Lisa into it back then. The proof was straightforward. Lisa had blacksmith skills. If she had been forced, why would Luke choose to create a demon with blacksmith skills instead of making one more powerful than Valbonihal? The truth was that deep in her heart, Lisa had always wanted to stay with Luke and support him. It was as simple as that. Luke had understood this for quite some time, yet refused to accept it. This was the very reason he had never been able to forge a holy sword to stop Valbonihal. Deep inside, he had always wanted to create a sword that would never break, a sword that could protect both the old Lisa and today's Lisa alike. Siegfried burst out laughing mockingly when he heard this. Was she talking about love and romance? Could all of this defeat a powerful imprisoned demon? Cecily did not waste time on words. She drew Luke's sword and drove it into the table. If he did not believe it, he could cut it with his holy sword and see for himself. Siegfried did exactly that, and on the very first collision, the sword he had been so proud of did not last even a single second. The front part of his blade broke off and flew straight toward the Empire delegation leader. The man barely escaped with his life. After this spectacle, no one had the nerve to doubt Luke's sword-forging skill, but Siegfried was burning with humiliation. Unable to contain his anger, he summoned demons to attack the city. At that same moment, Luke and Lisa were having an honest conversation about their future. He did not want Lisa to see herself as merely the shadow of his old friend. He genuinely regretted giving her that name, not because her personality was different from the old Lisa, but because he had realized how foolish he had been. In truth, Luke only wanted Lisa to live by her own free will and never hide behind anyone else's shadow again. Lisa told Luke in return that she had never once felt any burden or sadness living with him. From now on, they were in the same boat, moving forward together. The moment those words left her mouth, a monster jumped out of the water. Luke cut it down, but then an entire army arrived. Cecily jumped into the fight without hesitation. She fought with full enthusiasm and firm resolve, though the results were somewhat different. Luke wiped out the entire horde while Cecily only managed to kill one, and in doing so, her sword broke too. There was truly nothing left to say. This was not the only thing happening. The entire city was in danger. Citizens were being slaughtered mercilessly everywhere. Buildings were burning fiercely, turning this peaceful city into a war zone. People say old wood burns better, and the knight captain proved that saying true. Old they may have been, but not the least bit weak. He tied 2 heavy weights around a monster's neck, slammed it to the ground, and let the 100-plus brothers standing behind him pile on. But it was not just humans who could call for backup. The demons did the same, and the battlefield became more horrific and intense with every passing minute. Cecily quickly returned and rejoined the fight. Thanks to her and Arya, the balance tipped back toward the humans. On Luke's side, he had just found Siegfried and was about to make him pay when suddenly a monster launched an ambush attack on him. Fortunately, Luke moved with such speed that he cut it into pieces. Due to a broken bridge, it took Lisa a little longer to get around. By the time she arrived, Luke had already gone ahead to face Siegfried alone. The two were age-old enemies. The moment their eyes met, both drew their swords. Both were eager to finish the other off. While Luke was locked in battle with the man in black, Lisa ran crying to Cecily to explain the situation. Things were under control here, so Cecily decided to help Luke. On the way, one of Siegfried's companions blocked her path. That enemy had no demon sword, yet was very powerful. Cecily's ordinary wind strikes could not even touch her. On top of that, the woman's magic had pushed Cecily into a corner. The moment she was about to lose, Cecily spotted an opening and unleashed a massive wind energy attack. It left a long mark on the ground and went straight through a wall, creating a massive hole. When that woman fell to the ground, she was no longer capable of fighting and could not even move. After that devastating attack, Arya returned to her human form. She had expended a great deal of her energy and could fight no more. Returning to Luke's battle, Siegfried was wielding his rotting demon sword and had almost broken Luke's katana. When both clashed for a final strike, Luke's katana broke. He received a wound across his waist and fell down. Seeing this, Cecily and Lisa came running. Being overly overconfident with the advantage on his side, Siegfried had made his greatest error. Cecily had no weapon, yet still refused to retreat. She stepped forward and made her body a shield to stop Siegfried. In the enemy's eyes, this was laughable. A knight without a sword was just a helpless prey. But for Luke, it was an example of absolute resolve. When you set your mind on something, see it through completely. Doing things halfway will not only cost your life, but also the lives of those you love. Ignoring the fact that his body was giving out, Luke called for Lisa and began the forging process. Siegfried did not believe he could do this with such a wound, and began waiting for the final moment. But things turned out completely different from what he expected. Luke vomited a great deal of blood yet did not fall. His entire body remained firmly upright, and he completed every step of the forging with tremendous precision. When the sword emerged, it had a hope-filled blue blade. Luke handed it to Cecily. "Cut that son of a gun down right now." Having received the katana she had always dreamed of, Cecily did not waste a single second. She moved forward swiftly. The blue blade and the darkness collided and sparks flew. Unable to break the sword, Siegfried put all his strength into trying to overpower Cecily. That was his greatest mistake. Cecily tilted her blade upward and jammed it deep into Siegfried's sword. To everyone's amazement, that demon's sword he had been so proud of broke into 2 pieces. Cecily seized the opportunity, leaped upward, and delivered a straight strike. The sword went through Siegfried's chest, but it seemed as though it had reached its limit and it broke. Because of this, he was only severely wounded, not killed. Understanding that staying here any longer meant certain death, Siegfried glared at all 3 of them with venomous eyes. "Remember my face." Then he disappeared as fast as a dog bolting across an open field, and with that the battle came to an end. Luke's wounds were treated with an air pack. He was about to rest, but Cecily refused to allow it. Down in the city, the battle was still going on. As a knight, she could not rest at such a time. After everything that happened, Luke and Lisa were talking honestly about their future. He did not want Lisa to see herself as just the shadow of his old friend. He truly regretted giving her that name, not because her personality was different from the old Lisa, but because he had realized how foolish he had been. In truth, Luke only wanted Lisa to live by her own free will, and never hide behind anyone else's shadow. Lisa told Luke in return that she had never once felt any burden or sadness living with him. From now on, they were in the same boat moving forward together. The moment those words left her mouth, a monster jumped out of the water. Luke cut it down, but then the entire army arrived. Cecily jumped in without hesitation. She fought with full spirit and firm determination. Though the results left something to be desired, Luke eliminated the entire horde while Cecily managed to finish off only one.